Jordan. Right as you
started to sneeze.
What's up? Nothing much. Real quick, everybody that's watching, listen and look at the visuals and stuff, and just comment if something's weird, because we can fix it. It's just I'm also listening to Jordan and also doing that. So if I know what to fix, I can fix it.
Right. So Q&A can also be the direction the other way,
right,
where we have questions and they have answers.
Exactly.
Like, can you hear what we're doing?
Yeah. So if it's sounding weird, or sometimes my computer is like freezing on me. So if the picture just freezes, but you can still hear us, just let me know. Yeah, we'll fix it. It's Monday.
It is Monday.
And it's 7:00. You know what that means?
What does that mean?
I don't know that it's 7:00 on Monday, but specifically this 7:00 Monday, we're talking about the sermon from Sunday.
Why Jacob did the podcast matter? Do you have a clear, succinct answer? Because we're doing them, and we know that we're putting a lot of effort and time, and like we have prioritized them. Right. How would you describe the why behind that?
For us specifically, or podcast in general?
Us specifically.
Deeper dive, more connection. And people, I don't know, get to know us, get to know the church, get to know the personality better.
We started doing sermon recaps at men's Bible study and then the women's Bible study, because you can bring all these curriculums and stuff in. And so we're like, well, why wouldn't we just take whatever Sunday was about and try to clarify that? Mm-hmm. Like take what was already talked about. And so we got some requests, like we'd love to go to men's Bible study, we can't, it's in the mornings. We'd love to go to women's Bible study, we can't, it's in the mornings. Rather than having these kind of conversations, like one at a time, which is kind of the option, to be able to do this and mass sort of, not to say produce it, but make it available, then when people have questions, it feels like there's a trove of places that we can send them.
Right.
If 10,000 people had questions, this is where we could send answers kind of all at once. So to me, sort of an inside peek into what's going on, and then also like helps us. And secondly, to me, I feel like this is hugely therapeutic. I love getting to sort of talk it out, and I mean, being a communicator, being gone most of the winter and not having this, I was surprised it was hard. Like I was like, man, I miss getting to sort of bounce stuff back and forth verbally. It's like an introvert that doesn't get enough time alone to process. I'm like an extrovert that didn't get enough time to like process it on the outside. So
I just love podcasts in general because more broad than just us, I can just learn so much more from it, because when you just have more time to explain stuff, you start learning the little details that can add to whatever it is they're talking about.
No, I agree.
So specifically the sermon. So what, at a general sense, what was the sermon about yesterday?
So we're in a thought series, and I'm going to be honest, I didn't feel like I did a very good job in the second service.
Really?
It felt like it was kind of cyclical. It felt like it kind of came back to the same point over and over again. But when you look at the woman with the issue of blood, how just determined she was to get to Jesus, and you compare that to your average person that claims to follow Jesus, there's a desperation that she had that maybe like your average, American church attender just doesn't really have. It's kind of a casual, like, And as a result, what you're having is the church doesn't look any different than the world. And so if the world is considering Jesus as an option for like life, like the desperation but without a direction, they look at the people that claim to follow Jesus, and we say the church, and the church is always going to exist in different shapes and different forms. But the church as it stands today, you go, well, why would I go there? If there's no difference there, why would I mean, it doesn't make sense. I mean, it would literally be like, do I say this? It's almost like somebody who's wanting to lose weight.
Sneeze time.
Sorry. It's almost like somebody who's like, okay, I want to lose weight. Not because being big is a problem. Like I'm not even going to get in it. But say like I would like to lose weight. Mm-hmm. You would go to somebody who has accomplished what what you're wanting to accomplish, and say, how did you do it? Right. If you go to somebody that's in the exact same boat and go, how do I get your results? Sorry, you already did. Yeah, so, what is the distinction? And I think a lot of it is our thinking. I think so much of our thinking shapes so much of our desperation, because have you ever stopped and just thought about death, the inevitability of it? Like that everyone you know is going to die. Everybody that you love is going to die. Everybody you've ever known either has died or will die, and you will die. And you don't have to think about that for very long until you're like,
dang, dude.
Whoa, what am I doing?
Right.
What am I doing? Well, your whole perspective changes because of how you choose to think.
Right.
So I'd say that's what yesterday was trying to communicate.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I mean, that was eye-opening for me, because I'm very much about the way you come at something, thinking. And it doesn't matter what it is. Specifically, I find that people that I want to work with, there's a certain level of thought buy-in that I want them to have to be successful. So if we're filming a video or doing something, I want them to take it seriously. And so, because there's problems that are going to arise and all this different stuff. And so if they're just like, whatever, like that problem is just, I guess we won't do it today.
Right.
It doesn't work. And so the same thing with, when I feel like I'm talking to people about, what they are, if they want to be something, and I've brought this up again, like you want to be a doctor maybe, and that kind of thing. It's like, do you?
Right.
Do you want to change? So somebody that's the same position this lady was in, like, do you have any other option? Like, do you see this as like life or death? Like, you have to do this, because your attitude will be completely different about it.
Yes. And it's like going back to the weight loss thing. If I say that I want to lose weight, the question really becomes, do you?
Right.
You really do? Because there's a way. Right. Like, it's not, there is no gigantically overweight people that live in the jungle. Yeah. Really. I mean, there is a lifestyle that you can adopt if that's really what you want. But have you stopped to think about what that's going to take? Like what you're saying, what's the buy-in going to be? Sneeze again. Go ahead.
There's been just allergies everywhere.
Yes.
Wesley and I washed my car, and I'm kind of like a detail, like where they detail cars. I'm like a nerd about that.
You're a detailer.
So like I'll wash your car for like 6 hours. Okay. We washed the car. I came out, waxed it, everything. I came out, 30 minutes later, and it was yellow, just pollen everywhere. And I said, today I didn't take my Zyrtec or like an allergy pill. And so I'm just constantly messing with my nose.
Fine. I've been outside all day. I've been fine. I sit down here and I'm like, ugh. So yeah, I want to get some questions and answers. And so you guys that's y'all's part, but I am curious because we talked about a guy named Ignaz Semmelweis, and that doesn't even sound like I'm saying it right, but he was the guy who realized that the doctors who had been working on the cadavers and doing autopsies would then walk right in and
deliver a baby.
Deliveries, yeah. And they're like, man, the moms just keep dying. Like, what is 98 deaths per 1,000? That's like 10%, isn't it? I got stuck on this yesterday.
You're the mathematician here.
Roughly 10%, 9.86%.
That'd be 1%. 10 out of 1,000?
No, 98.6.
100 out of 1,000.
98.6 out of 1,000 births.
About 10.
10%. So 1 out of every 10 moms that was having a baby in the Vienna General Hospital was dying because there was such a low amount of focus placed on the crossover between death and life. And he got it wrong. He actually published a book and went on this tour telling people that cadaver material kills people. Right. And they're like, that doesn't seem right. That doesn't seem right. He's like, no, it's got to be that, because like the germ theory didn't really fully develop as far as germs causing disease until like 25 years later or something like that. And it was actually they discovered in cattle and replicated in rats and stuff like that. It's a cool study, but they're like, he didn't have it exactly right. But the practice of washing your hands with chlorinated lime, the practice of that dropped the death rate down to back to like 3%. Which is still high for today's standards, but we've learned a few more things.
Yeah.
But what's so fascinating to me is you start talking about thought life and everybody goes to Tony Robbins. They're like, yeah, man, that guy, he's like the thinking, get manifested. Yeah. Shut up. Can I just go on record? Do I dare do this?
Yeah. No.
If you go spend $5,000 to have someone tell you that the solutions are in you, I'm trying to be what I am without being against what I'm not. And I'm violating my own conscience on this, but this is not a positive thinking guru thing. It is literally the way that I choose to think in light of who Jesus is, who I believe Jesus to be. The way that I should think should be different than someone who doesn't follow Jesus. The choices that I make about how I think. Talk for just a second. I'll be right back.
Because I was so interested in so for a while I was so I don't know, on the train of just like, the Lord, please, give me a sign. You have to. And what I realized, somebody said, he's doing it all the time. What are you talking about? You're just not seeing it. Your thought process is wrong about this, because he is giving you signs daily. He's talking to you daily, but you're not seeing it because, you're seeing like a bird fly by and it's just a bird.
Yeah.
Versus a bird flies by and you go back to the verse of like, he cares about that thing. We were just talking about starlings. He cares about those. Those are like the worst birds ever.
Right.
And then I find out that they can mimic sounds. I was just laying in bed today, looked out a window, and this garbage bird was mimicking a beautiful songbird, and I'm like, that is a.
But how you think about that?
Right.
If I choose to believe that God even cares about that, then 90% of the stuff that I stress out about is beyond the threshold
right. of
God caring. I could eliminate 90% of the things that I stress out about if I would just remember that God genuinely cares, and I'm responsible for what I know to do. He has told us he'll never leave you. He'll never forsake you. Like 90% of the things people think about are into the depth of, if God leaves, if God doesn't do it, if God abandons me, and you're just wasting your time. You're wasting your thought patterns.
Yeah, you already said that thing.
Yeah, if you don't believe Jesus is Jesus, say that, and then live free of the rules. Why feel guilty? Mm-hmm. If Jesus isn't who the word says he is, why are we worried about this? Go do whatever you want and stop stressing about it. But this idea of somebody who claims Jesus, feels guilty about violating the rules, but doesn't believe that Jesus is, it's like, it's the worst. It's the worst of both, because you're not following Jesus. You're not getting the benefit of believing that Jesus is like the net that's going to catch you, and you just turn into a wreck. And I think that's what we find in the most religious scenarios.
Yeah. What were we talking about? But basically humanity gets into we were just talking about, like, why do reporters get to go in to these, super illegal things?
Let me give the backstory real quick. These multi-bajillion-dollar drug cartels let journalists come follow them around sometimes. And you're like, how? Doesn't matter what people are doing. Backyard, that we were looking at the documentary about a backyard knuckle fight, or like bare knuckle fighting ring.
Right.
And they're like, we need a journalist in here. Like, you do not want a journal. Like, if you want to keep doing this, you do not need publicity. Just the situations that people will let journalists in because they want to be the focus of whatever.
Right. And so, and Jordan brought up of like, why would these people let a journalist in if this is illegal and they want it to stay
what are you doing?
Hidden? Because, and I said, well, because they have so many different goals. Right. Everybody, humanity. If you only cared about money, absolutely not. You would let a journalist in, but you care more about money. You want people to know your story. You want to be known and people to respect you and all this different stuff. So yeah, you would let in a journalist. Same thing. I feel like for, how the church people can just kind of end up on this wrong road is because maybe they start correct. Right. Of, it's all about Jesus and other, but humanity just has a way of ruining that, and it's the way you think. You have to almost daily like refresh your mind.
That's it. That's exactly it. There's a daily discipline to this. This is not a go completely into neutral, go your own way, and Jesus will follow you picking up the crumbs. It is literally a decision, and to say mentally disciplined, to go, God, help me know how to think about this. Like, I'm in a battle right now on some things in my mind, and I'm like, God, I don't know how you want me to think. It's crazy. It's producing this series about the discipline of our thought, but daily I'm like, God, I don't know how I'm supposed to be thinking about this. Mm-hmm. If you just give me a direction, off I go, and we're not there yet. And so as a result, I'm just having to keep coming back because I find myself, what about this? What about that? Stressing about this. What about this? Is there a medical condition that where you just instantly are able to completely, clearly visualize worst case scenario in your head? Is it like a disaster concept? Like, for some reason, it doesn't matter what comes up in my mind, I can visualize worst possible scenario. Like my kids are like, hey, can I ride? I'm like,
yeah, no, I have
all I can see thing. Is like my daughter being drug around by her foot by a horse. And I'm like, no.
Whoa.
See? Okay. And so like, it doesn't matter what it is.
That's awful.
It's terrible. Yeah. And so I have to overcome whatever that is, whatever that's called. But like with the church, with my family, with my future, with all this stuff, all I can see is the way that it could fall apart.
Sure.
I'm like, God, I know that can't be right. I know that I can't live under constant accusation. I know that's not right. If I've got a sin issue that I need dealt with, let's deal with that. If I've got whatever, I mean, name it. I go down to.
Oh, sorry, my mom.
That's called.
I thought she was gonna say like that's called blank, but yeah, being human. That's a good point.
Yeah. So if I've got God, if I've got a sin issue, tell me that. If I got bad habits, tell me that. If I've got flawed thinking, tell me that. That's fine. But I know that to live under daily accusation is not his plan for me.
Right.
And if I'm not careful, if I wake up, my neutral setting, my neutral default mental setting is accusation
And fear.
I think that's what fear.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm not. This isn't like my therapy session, but I sense that. So like my choice is, God, I know what my default setting seems to be. Reset that today. And you said it. Reset it today. And then when I get up tomorrow, reset it tomorrow. And when I find myself losing it, reset it again. That the power of by choosing to focus on who God is, that he'll never leave you, he'll never forsake you. He knows when a sparrow falls. He's got the hairs on my head counted. He's never looked away from me. I've never been out of his full attention according to what the word says. If those things are true, then I can't continue to hold on to things that cause me stress.
Right.
Otherwise, it's a choice. I'm choosing doubt. Has it happened? If it has, isn't it called intuition? No, that's the thing. It hasn't happened. I mean, yeah, I've been around enough to know what bad would look like. I mean, I live my life according to a series of rules of like prevention, especially around horses. I mean, if you're around animals at all, like I thought everybody had this intuition. To your point, Chandra, there are people that don't see danger and walk right into it. Right. And so I see that and I'm like,
sure.
I thought everybody knew not to
walk behind.
And some of it's just been raised in it.
Yeah.
But some of it is just literally, it's not intuition at all. It's just literally me being able to see worst case scenario the minute something comes up of like, for a year, 2 years, I would sit there at Rimrock on a Sunday morning and I'd be like, is this the week nobody shows up?
That's terrible.
I mean, we're running 400 people. Jeez. And I was like, is this the week that literally not one person walks through the door? And every single time for 2 years, when people would walk in, I'm like, no kidding. Why are you here? What? I can't believe somebody's here. For 2 years, all I could see is an empty room with nobody but my family.
What's weird, because I had that similar thought process, but the thing that would bring me peace. So like when I went on the Ethiopia trip, right? It was kind of to prove to myself that it's like, it's gonna be fine, because I had that same type of thing of, anxiety and blah, blah, blah. But what brought me peace was thinking about, okay, what if that did happen?
Yeah. Lean into the death.
So, if absolutely nobody showed up, it would almost kind of be a freeing feeling. 'Cause you're like, okay,
hey, I lived through that.
Yeah. And now I know that I'm not, supposed to do this or whatever, and the Lord has a different plan for me.
I remember one time in 2016, I was praying and I was like, God, if I've been wrong about, there was one little like vein of thought that I'd always had, and it turned out I was wrong. I thought it my whole life and it was wrong. And I was like, God, if you knew that this whole time, like you've let the church grow, you let things be successful. Like we launched the 1017 project and you did all that with someone who had faulty thinking. Why? And I, as clear as God has ever answered is, I wasn't strong enough to deal with failure. Like if he'd have let failure happen, I would have given up.
Yeah.
And so it's like the children of Israel leaving the desert. Mary says, it's going to be fine. Exact plane crashes 8 hours after you flew on it.
Yeah, that was crazy.
That is a true story if you don't know. But like he didn't, the children of Israel leaving Egypt, he said, I can't lead them into battle because if they face battle right now, they're going to give up.
What, Wesley? Okay, don't worry about it.
Don't worry about that one. That's the one. It's like frozen on the screen as that camera.
Oh, it's frozen right now. See? Thank you,
yeah,
Jordan, for saying that. Okay, real quick, I got to unplug stuff and then replug stuff back in. So 1 second.
They can still hear while we're talking, right? Okay. Answer if you can still hear, because it's frozen on the computer, but answer if you can still see or hear. Somebody give me some feedback here. Can you hear us?
Now they should be able to.
They couldn't hear us before. When it was froze, could they hear us?
Yes, they could.
Okay.
But it was just visually frozen. But
Showing
it should be good
yes. Now. Yes. Okay, good.
Okay, cool. We're back.
But yeah, I mean, the death and resurrection is to like lean into the worst possible scenario. You live, you're still alive. Like if nobody would have showed up, okay, I'm still alive. And then you start to live having experienced
right.
the worst case scenario.
So Go ahead.
I also currently have a fear now that we won't grow into the potential. Like, for the record now, I have this fear of, like, there's so many people unreached right now. So many of my friends not being reached by a church. I ask myself all the time, like, would I even be someone who went to a church if it in a different circumstance? And, like, those people, there is a fear, and I'm saying it in advance so that I'm accountable to it. But I still have this fear of, like, what happens if we never reach that potential? I don't know what to do with that. But, you know, you think of growth, and usually when a pastor talks about growth, it's like, I'm going to get invited to conferences, or I'm going to make a big career out of this, or I'm going to get to preach at, famous churches and stuff like that. I think for as well as I know myself, for as good as I know myself, and that's including blind spots that could potentially exist, I see the potential that a lot of people miss what Jesus is doing with us. And that's like my current one. It's not that nobody will show up anymore. It's that there will be people who get missed because we're not doing. I mean, I'm not defending it. Yeah, I'm not defending it. I'm just saying it's like my irrational fear now is that we're going to miss people that need it.
Interesting. So, okay, if I'm tracking, the reason, well, I want you to explain this, but why, with everybody else around Jesus, the crowd that he was walking through, why when she touched his robe, everything stopped? And he said, "Who touched me?"
That's the whole sermon. That's why I feel like I didn't do a good job in the second service yesterday, was the intent.
Right.
She was desperate to get to Jesus where everybody else was just casual. See, like, she had gone through this process. I mean, she was desperate because of everything that she'd gone through in her life. She had nothing left. So she was going to Jesus completely empty. And the minute she touches Jesus completely empty, she becomes full. And Jesus goes, I felt it. I felt that. Someone came to me empty. People that were bumping into him were just full of other things, full of distraction, full of the world, full of their stuff. Their thoughts had never, been drawn into clarity and all, like stuff we talked about yesterday. She had nothing. When she touched Jesus, literally it was her last thing. She was empty. And I think sometimes we're full of so many other things that to become empty, we're going to have to give some things up. I mean, the American model is not give up something to get something else. It's build a bigger garage. It's both and instead of either or. Have you ever thought about how wealthy our nation is? I was thinking about this the other day, that when you want a turkey, you determine your wealth on, can I afford a turkey? What are they like? I don't know. How much is a turkey? Somebody comment. How much does a turkey cost at Thanksgiving? Well, you base your, like, how well am I doing on, if I can go to the grocery store and buy a turkey. What you don't consider is that our nation is wealthy enough to produce so many turkeys that the price of turkey is like that cheap. And that's just one example. You can buy eggs at the gas station now, boiled eggs at the gas station. I know it sounds risky. They're really good. I was also raised in Johnson County on hot dogs. Not important. Have you ever taken the red string off bologna before?
No.
Maybe don't eat boiled eggs from a gas station. But the reason those things are available is because our country is so wealthy that we can specialize. Like, there's people who make wealth off of growing millions of turkeys. $20 to $30 says. Good evening from Cali, Texas. Hey, Marcia.
Real quick. The bologna thing. What? Taking the skin off of bologna?
The red string from the outside of the bologna? Like, you take the red string off the bologna and put it on your sandwich? You guys, I'm not alone. I know somebody.
Okay, why would you need to take that off?
There's 30 people watching. Someone I know for a fact is out there. Back me up on this. You have a piece of bologna. It comes off in strips. And then you take the red lining off of it because it's made out of plastic. It's not edible. Would know. No. Listen, you would know. It's plastic. If you chewed it, you can't chew through. You couldn't even, like, it's a plastic piece of string.
Okay. That must not have been on my bologna, or it's still
organic turkey
in there somewhere.
Gas station eggs are gross. Don't believe him. You can't say that from the Shiloh Ranch. I think that's Mary. That's got to be Mary.
That's got to be Mary.
Yeah,
or Lacey.
Yeah, thanks, DJ.
Yeah, weird.
But anyway, so my point is, we live in such a wealthy nation that we think we're doing well because we can afford a turkey. We don't think about the million, billion, jillion dollars it takes that we have a turkey industry. Go to Costco.
Yeah.
Go to Costco and look at everything. What is Kirkland? What?
Yeah.
I had a buddy the other day. We were at his house, and he had another friend coming up from California bringing him some vodka. And they're like, dude, you know the best vodka? And I'm like, I don't. I have no idea. Kirkland. And I'm like, the people that make underwear and food and bottled water. And what is Kirkland?
I think it's just the general thing of
casting the casing off. See, I knew I wasn't alone. You have to peel the red plastic off. Thank you.
Weird, man.
Especially in Canada.
Is that still, is bologna
Do you know what
still
Canada?
made that?
Do you know what Canada has that we don't have?
Bacon.
No. What? Yes, that's ham.
That's ham.
Hey, Greg, back me up on this. Greg from Canada, back me up on this. He's not from Canada. He's also talking about Canada. Ketchup chips.
I love ketchup chips. I've had them.
From the
Lay's.
gas station. What's that Canadian gas station that has them? Ketchup chips. We don't have those. Bologna to be wrapped in red plastic. You got to take it off. You cannot eat it.
Okay,
Slice
do
the
they
bologna
still make
with-
bologna like that?
I don't know.
I've
Jay,
eaten
Jordan
bologna
Lacey, I know what
recently.
you're talking about with the red wrapping. Yeah, I'm telling you, you're in the minority here,
Dude.
Like me and my poor friends.
Okay.
Me and my poor people friends. That yeah, we know.
I eat bologna.
No.
I guess just organic bologna.
Greg, what's the name of that store? The gas station's up there. It's a two-name. It's a guy's name. The store is a guy's name. You know what I'm trying to talk
know.
about.
Tim
Hardy's. Tim
Hortons?
Hortons.
Tim
Tim Hortons ketchup chips from Tim Hortons. That was our one request from our rodeo and buddies, like when they were in Canada. Like, unopened. It's important to mention. Bring me unopened ketchup chips from Tim Hortons.
Yeah.
Gourmet bologna. Thanks, Jason. It's fine. Yeah. Hey. So no, it's Tim Hortons. Yeah. So
What were we talking about before bologna?
boy, I don't know. Oh, how wealthy our nation is. So
Right.
they touch Jesus and they're like, yeah. That to me is like the scariest thing, is that you can be full of artificial distraction, and people bumped into Jesus and went, yeah. And
I mean, and do you think, now this isn't really related to the sermon, but when Jesus left, the Holy Spirit came. Do you think the Holy Spirit gave us somehow our souls like a realization or some kind of understanding to who the Spirit of Jesus is? Because I cannot imagine.
I have to believe he did.
I can't imagine any human person being near Jesus and not just overwhelmed. But I mean, maybe I'm thinking.
I think it goes both ways. And back to intuition, I've been around people. This is terrible to admit. And as a pastor, I know that if you're watching this and you're thinking, oh, that seems awfully judgmental. I'm telling you, you can ask my wife. 99 out of 100 times, my first impression of someone is accurate. Almost every single time. First impression, I get it almost every time. And you're not allowed to say that because you're like, oh, you're judging people on their looks or whatever. It's not that. It's like when you talk to somebody for a minute, whoever, like your first impression is, I don't know if it's from being around animals. I don't know if it's from like just being around a lot of people growing up. I don't know what it is.
Knowing bologna.
I mean, maybe it's the bologna with the red wrapping that just gives you a deeper understanding of the world that you live in. I don't know, but I think there are people that are naturally intuitive, and because of that, there are times that you're around people and you just know there's something dark associated with what's going on. And I mean, it's not like I could walk through the room and tell everybody their business or anything silly like that. But I think I'm because of that, I think it's really hard to imagine walking by Jesus and not sensing it, unless you were just so focused on day-to-day life. I think in my mind, that's where I go, hey, if you're not making a point every single day, and I don't, here's the deal. Yeah. I don't do this every day. I wish I did. I wish I was disciplined enough to do this every day. Sometimes it's like Judas wasn't. Sometimes like I catch myself in the middle of like a free fall mentally and I go, yeah, I got to go back. I did it again. Like I got distracted. And so the only thing I can imagine is that somebody is so locked on, because keep in mind they're under Rome. So their number one priority was not God. Their number one priority was dealing with Rome. Someday we'll be free. Their number one priority was not a Messiah that was calling them to death. Take up your cross and follow me. They were so locked on to something that they just maybe didn't have room. I don't know. They just didn't have room. Never stopped to reconsider that what they wanted was not the ultimate good. Can I say that again, Kelly? Where's my camera? Look at the camera. What we want in the moment.
Am I supposed to?
Just get in here. What we want in the moment is not the ultimate good in the world. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when I stop and think about who God is, He'll never leave me. He'll never forsake me. What am I so worried about? Why am I so concerned that I can't figure this out on my own? What I realize is like, hey, what I'm distracted with is not the ultimate good in the world. God is the ultimate good in the world. And if He's the ultimate good in the world, where does that qualify me? I think sometimes the danger is that I qualify my opinion as the ultimate good. And it doesn't even make sense if God is who he said he is. In comparison, if God knows everything, future and present and past, and I don't, then what I want should always be subjected to, but God, show me where you're taking me. Show me what I don't see. Take me, like, over the last few years, there's been things that we're just ahead of the curve on that we couldn't have possibly known. And I attribute that to God placing us kind of in the low spot before the river comes. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. I feel like I'm going in circles now, but.
Yeah. So he noticed her thinking, her mindset of the realization of who he is. Like, I could just touch a strand and I would be healed.
What if he felt the capacity, the space, the like a pot? If you think about a pot, what makes that pot useful is how much of it is available. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like a pot that's full of something else isn't really useful because it's already full of something else.
Right.
And you look at the parables in the Old Testament of like the woman with the oil, and she just kept pouring until her capacity ran out. Mm-hmm. The oil was always indicative of the Spirit of God, right?
Okay.
And so the Spirit of God poured until she had no more room to contain it. The minute she had no more room to contain it, it stopped. But the pot, as long as it was empty, as long as there was an open space in it, then the oil could make its way in.
Right.
And I wonder if it wasn't even her thoughts. Her thoughts led to her choices led to her actions led her to Jesus. I mean, there's a chain of events there. But it might have been the emptiness that he felt. The emptiness that hadn't been replaced with all the other garbage that distracts people.
Right.
And when she got there was room in her life for Jesus to be able to do what he wanted.
And do you think that's, I mean, so that is America's problem? Or I mean, I use America, but I mean, it's much.
It's the difficulty of wealth.
Right.
Wealth means that we don't have a capacity. When you think about money, I can't remember who said this, but I know that I've heard Neil Cross also say it, that money gives you nothing but options. That's all money gives you. That's it. The only thing money can give you is options. But sometimes options are not the thing that benefit you the most. Sometimes options are the things that distract you from what matters. So the wealth is a lack of capacity. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're full of whatever you chose to put in your life and your mind.
Yeah. Man.
So the thinking, I mean, I'm thinking out loud here, but I wonder if the thinking maybe leads us to sort of cleaning out the garage a little bit. Of like, where do I have room in my life for God to work? Where do I have room in my life for God to call me to do anything? I mean, I think when God calls people to do something, there's stories about this in the New Testament. God calls like a party, the master, he calls a party, and people were so distracted with what they had going on. And so he sent people to the highways and the byways. What is he doing? He's sending them to pots that are empty, that the world would go, ugh.
Right.
But Jesus is going, no, I can work with that because there's a space, there's a capacity available to me.
I mean, that's the first thing I started thinking is like, that's so true about money just giving you options. Cause that is my, I want to say vice is I absolutely love researching gear, and it's handy for the job and the career that I'm in because I'm constantly, learning things. But it's also like when I get money and I get to think about what I can spend it on, I have to stop myself because I just get so consumed with learning everything about the things that I could buy, to the point where I'm like, I'm not even me right now. I'm just learning, researching this crap, Yeah. I mean, that's the first thing that I started thinking about is like, what could I stop doing to make more room?
Probably when this is all said and done, that will be the thing I will say that I struggled with the most was I have an idea of what I want in life and I get obsessed with it. Like I get obsessed with trying to accomplish the thing that I think I need to accomplish. And I don't consider that what I'm lacking is also equal in opportunity. My lack equals opportunity. And I hate it when I'm lacking something. Like we're trying to do some stuff right now with the 1017 and we just like finances are just a little bit not there for where we want to go. And I'm like, man, and in my mind, I have all the solutions. If we just had this and this and this and then this would work and then this would work. And I'm like, wait. Lack is also opportunity. We don't really talk about giving. We don't give people the opportunity to get involved with the 1017 project the way that we used to, because things have been rolling and we're doing good and we just assume people are going to give. Well, the lack of where people kind of just begin to wander off. And so I want to get to Holly's comment. She said, like a siphon won't pull if both containers have the same amount of fluid. Jesus felt the pull. Yeah. I think that's accurate.
Yeah.
I mean, it is such a brain bender, speaking of thought, to try to think of Jesus being fully God and fully man.
Yeah.
Because there were times you see Jesus demonstrating what seems to be the limitations of being man. He's tired. And you're like, what? He's tired? It says during the waves, he was in the bottom and he was sleeping on a cushion. He needed comfort. Like, he needed to be comfortable. You're like, it is such a brain bender to think of how God becomes fully God, fully man in those moments. And then it says he was looking around, and like, was that just an act? Was he just like pretending to look around because he knew? Or was he,
oh, interesting.
I mean, he was looking around, but he felt it. Like, he knew. But then at the same time, it's almost like, this is the brain bender part, but it's almost like you watch Jesus kind of fade in and out from between person and God. And I don't know the theology behind all that. But it was like he knew her. She came forward and he knew her. So was it an act, or was he trying to prove a point of, look at all these people touching me? What made a difference for her? Like, he's trying to teach everybody else, using her as a demonstration. And those are the sorts of nuances that I'm like, man, there's so much about Jesus I just don't get yet.
Yeah. I mean, I know, people have found a lot of success with meditation and reading the Bible in the mornings every day and that kind of thing. And I'm seeing that differently now with the cleaning out the mind on a daily basis of focusing on God, because, I mean, that's the times I feel so far away, is when I just kind of look up one day and I'm like, I haven't been
right.
My thinking, the way I think about things has changed.
Right.
And I have just become so much less of myself by just existing and just going with the flow. And I go to bed tired, but sometimes going to bed, 10 minutes earlier than you would have if you kind of like prayed and, ended your night that way. It's just, you just go with the flow and you end up nothing.
I think that's what I was saying in, like, if our mind is our battlefield, if that's really truly our battlefield is in our minds, because the Bible says, as a man thinketh in his heart. Wait, what? Think about what I just said. As he thinks in his heart. We would say as he thinks in his brain. The Bible says as he thinks in his heart, like whatever. So there's a comparison there between your heart, your feelings, and your mind. As a man thinks in his heart, thinketh actually is the word, thinketh in his heart, so is he. That our brain, our mind is our battlefield. That's where the battlefield. And like what you're saying is, if we're not careful, we become casual about a battlefield. Right. In no place in the world do you see someone casual about a battlefield. If it's a battlefield, there's intention and there's tension, and like, you're aware, and you're not casual, you're aware of it, and you're like, this really matters. You go back to that hospital in Hungary that said, no, we can't be casual about the crossover between death and life, because the death is causing death where there should be life. And that's kind of where I was trying to, I think maybe the first service, it went a little better than the second, but that's what I was trying to say is, like, if I'm not careful, if I become casual or unaware, I start to lose the battle, because I'm not making space in my heart and in my mind for the magnitude of who Jesus is, not the magnitude, but also the intimacy of who he is becomes less real to me. And it's almost like I find myself explaining my problems to God instead of realizing he already understands them and asking him to explain my problems to me. Yeah. Because if I could ask God to explain my problems to me, I'm washing off all the death of my thoughts, and I've got an opportunity for new life. But if I'm just carrying death habits into my opportunities, I'm killing those opportunities because I'm casual, I'm unintentional about the crossover. And so in my thinking, what I have to be is fully disciplined and engaged to choose what I want to make space for that day.
Yeah.
I'm telling you what, if our community here could do that, whether you're watching online or whether you're in person, doesn't matter. If you could do that right there, clear out a space every day, take the battlefield seriously, realize that what's happening in death crosses over and starts to happen and cause death in other areas of your life. If we could start like, hey, where's the sink? Like, where's the sink where I can take all the junk and just get it off of me and recognize that I'm a part of a battlefield for my mind, because my body's going to die anyway. My body's already dead. My body already lost the fight. It's over. I'm doing the best I can with it as long as it's still functioning, but my body is dead. It's over. It was given a death sentence the day I was born, and everyone's got that. So my body is never going to recover, but my spirit can. And if I'm intentional to take care of my spirit in the meantime while my body's still working, then I'm winning the battle that is for my truest self. Because my truest self is eternal.
Right.
I'm not going to be stuck in the shell forever. But how many times, go to Hollywood and just walk down the streets and look at how many people have never separated their truest self from their physical appearance.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Taylor Brown said, glad this is back, Eloise. Thank you. Valerie Thomas said, Linda Dennis. So,
Okay.
I read it.
Yeah. Good. Yeah.
But yeah, that's the casual thing. We're not, you can't be casual about the sink. Like if you work in a hospital, you can't be casual about the crossover of germs.
Right.
And if you're going to be this new thing, if your life is going to reflect a newness of who Jesus is, it's got to have an area that's intentional.
Right.
You've got to have a space that's intentional to address the death that you go through.
Yeah. I mean, that is so spot on to, the mindset going into something. You have to, whatever you do, like I say, an artist's, what makes an artist is their mindset going into something, because somebody can just paint a random picture, just throw paint on a canvas, and then it won't sell.
Right.
But then somebody can do essentially the same thing, just throw paint on a canvas, but then say, but this stripe and blah, blah,
Right.
whatever they say. And then it sells for like millions of dollars because their mindset towards that thing is so different. And the same thing with, working media.
Yeah.
You get people that are like, oh, well, whatever, that angle is fine. And then you get people that, make a movie and every single frame of the movie is a painting. And then people look at that movie, as an actual piece of art,
Right.
So the same thing with you wake up and are you going to, where's your mindset at?
Right.
Are you eating food just to consume food? Or are you eating it like, thank you
Right.
for this?
Right.
Because this is incredible. We have turkeys everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean,
There's companies that are worth millions of dollars to make a turkey affordable for me.
right.
I am so spoiled.
Yeah. Because that sounds like such a better life. Just having that outlook of just pure amazement of how
Right.
good life is right now, and then when it's not, the comfort.
But we're not tied to it. Like I said, I'm thankful for my body because I get to use it for a while. It's kind of like a rental car. Like my body is my rental car that I get to have for a while between point A and point B. But ultimately, I can be grateful for it, even in its imperfections, because it's not permanent. I'm not stuck with this forever. I won't be this forever. Someday, I'm going to transition into something eternal.
Right.
And so I'll take care of my rental car as long as I got it. But in the meantime, like what you're saying, I can be grateful. I can be thankful for it. And I can work on trying to upkeep and change oil and stuff. But in reality, what I should be working on is still what I am allowing myself to dwell on.
Yeah. Yeah. Dwell on. Taking every thought captive.
Right.
And we talk about it. We say resistance, or that's what I call it, of just the dirt of life.
Yeah.
Creating resistance in your life just to make life harder.
Yeah.
And for me, that's a huge thing. Is dwelling is a huge part of resistance of, I can, like Levi and I were talking about it today where, somebody came to the studio and he shook his hand. And it was just one of those weird handshakes, where it goes in weird and then it's kind of like, okay, I guess we're not going to address that, but that was weird. And then leaves, and Levi's like, I'm going to think about that when I'm falling asleep. It's just one of those things. And I'm like, so that's a huge thing with me is I can, have a conversation with somebody that it just goes weird and I didn't portray myself well, right. And like the podcast can do the same thing where I'm like, man, I shouldn't have said that and, that way and that kind of stuff. And I can just dwell on it. But then when I'm dwelling on that, I'm not focused on Jesus or the great things that I have, and all that kind of different stuff.
What do you do? You guys jump in on here if you see something that you want to comment on, but What do you do with people? Have you ever heard the statement, someone's so heavenly minded, they're no earthly good? Have you ever heard that statement?
No, I haven't.
I think if we're not careful, what can happen is we start thinking about God as a rule too. Okay. I mean, the other half of this is you think about God as a rule, and it was actually the law. You go back to the woman with the issue of blood. It was the law that was separating her. Right. So if you're thinking of Jesus as a rule, like I have to think about Jesus, like I know people like this. I'm very close to people in my life like this that are like, hey, how's it going? Well, Jesus has blessed me. And so I'm trying to bring that into every element of my life and every part of my conversation. I'm just going to push it in there, whether it fits or not. And people are like, okay. Yeah. I think sometimes for me, and I'm only speaking to myself, it's not dwelling on Jesus every single moment. Not that would hurt, but
sure.
It's also not being willing to dwell on things that draw me away from him. Sometimes it's just a willingness to like be, knowing that I'm somewhere in the valley of the trough of where he's got me. I'm in the manger, so to speak. And like, if I feel it drifting, the conscious decision to bring it back. And sometimes if I find myself thinking about Jesus, I go with that, but it's not because I'm thinking about him as a rule. And I'm like, well, I have to talk about Jesus.
Oh yeah. Oh no. I thought about that, money again. Yeah.
Right.
No, I mean, there's both sides. There's two ditches.
But I think as long as every day, the magnitude of God and the love he's got for us and the stuff that we find in the word that we don't understand, dwell on the stuff we don't understand, ask the questions, like spend some time going down the rabbit hole, trying to figure out, just a little bit every day to me is like the fuel that allows me in those moments of stress to go, whoop, I'm doing it. Like I catch it quicker. I don't spend as much time down the wrong rabbit holes.
Right. Yeah. Is,
the sink. Yeah,
that's what
the think sink. Lacey told me the other day, she goes, you've got to keep doing that. I'm like, it's so hard. I don't even know if I understand why. It is so hard for me to say quippy things that rhyme. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Maybe I grew up too familiar with it, and you see it in preachers as we were traveling around but that's hard. I wish I understood why it's so hard. But the think sink for some reason helps me to
think about
stick in your mind.
Wash it. Yeah. And is the next sermon is on this track as well?
It is. Yep. It's the I Think Not series. I've got some notes. I don't know that I could get into it because it changes, but it's interesting that choices that we make, like you look at a guy on the side of the street holding up a sign for money and hey, it's Casey Stewart's birthday. Shout out Casey. I didn't see what she said yet, but shout out. It's her birthday. I think she's 29. I think when you experience something unexpectedly tragic in your life, you realize firsthand how quick life can change and brings the worst case scenario flashes in everyday life events. Yeah. So, and I wonder if that's shaped by that, Casey. That's a good point because when I was 15, we lost my little brother in a car accident. Mm-hmm. Worst case scenario for like a family, right? My family never leaves that I don't think about that. Like every time, without fail, every single time I tell my kids bye, I'm reminded that could be it. And I wonder if that's where that comes from, is just having experienced something so traumatic and being like, man, that kid, it doesn't announce it. It's not like it leads up to it. Like, you guys ready for next week? No, man, next week's going to be terrible. It's like, it's over. The event's over before you even realize it's happening a lot of times. Okay. Taylor says, I find myself so overwhelmed sometimes that I don't know how to start talking with God. Oh my gosh. We're going to spend some time on that for a minute, Taylor. I'm going to get back to it. Like in the moment, I have to think, but for me, it's a shower. Yeah. So Taylor, start talking with God. Why do we do podcasts, Jacob? Why do we do podcasts? Because of that right there. Moments that we wouldn't have had with people right here. You want to know my estimation? Let's see if I'm right. I think that the podcast will eventually outpace the church services.
Yeah.
I do. I think someday we're going to look back and we're going to go, man, we love church. We love getting to see people. We're glad that's going well, but my guess is because of stuff like that right there. Okay. Find myself so overwhelmed that sometimes I don't know how to start talking with God. Here's where I would start. Silence. I would give it a minute because one of the things I have found in my own life, if I will demand silence in my life, and some will call that meditation. I don't know if I would say it that way. Tommy's want me to call him. Tommy, I'll call you later. How many times I'm trying to fill the space between God and I, and what I find is like, if I'll just stop. I've told this story before, but it's one of my favorite stories. I'll never forget it. Taylor, I'm answering your question. I see that you're watching. I was at a pond. I pulled up next to a pond. I was under a tree, and I was waiting on some people that were going to come. We were going to come gather some yearlings. And I pull up under this four-wheeler, and the dogs go lay down, and I'm just sitting there, and there's this little hole right here in this pond that's below the surface of the water. And I'm sitting there for a minute, and I'm just quiet. It's just one of the rare times where I feel like I'm I'm not thinking about something. I'm not on my phone. Maybe my phone had died or something, and I was just sitting there. And pretty soon a fish comes swimming in, and pretty soon some tadpoles come swimming in, and pretty soon like this whole hole in this pond, like this deep spot, is just full of pond life. And I'm like, that is incredible that I'm getting to see this. Taylor, here's the answer to your question, is I swear I felt like God said, this is what it's like all the time. This is what it's like every single day. They all swam away because you showed up. And if you're not careful and you're going through life so fast, you're creating, it's like a semi driving down the road, just carrying all this wind with it. The wind exists because of the speed of the truck. If you stop for a second and all this comes back, like this is how life is 24/7, every single moment of every single day when you're not in it. And I didn't get the sense that I was like in trouble. I got the sense of like, if you would slow down every now and then, you would get to see life from a more accurate perspective. And I wasn't praying. I wasn't like, God, I don't know how to start talking to you. I was literally sitting there going, wait, what?
Right.
I mean, I felt like I had a God moment just because I was willing to clear space in my mind and not fill it with something.
Right.
How many times, I mean, your phone counts it for you if you want to look it up. How many times you sit there and you're starting to have a quiet moment and you're like, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, TikTok. Don't even get me started on
chores.
TikTok.
I mean, you can fill it with things that that are perceived as good. Working out. I mean,
So I would start with that as far as talking to God. I'm telling you, I think the average person, if you would just, how do you turn your mind off, Valerie? That is such an exercise. Garrett just told me this story, and I don't know if I'm allowed to tell who it's about or not, so I'm just going to tell you the story. It was a funny line, and anyway, somebody had an injury, and this guy that he's talking about says, hey, you got to be careful. You're out of shape. You're not used to being out of shape. You're usually in really good shape. I'm in shape for being out of shape, and I can tell you, like, you got to be careful. I've never heard anybody say in shape for being out of shape.
Yeah.
But Valerie, I think that's an exercise that's learned. I think you got to take a minute and just, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Everybody's different. I mean, the willingness to turn your brain off is an exercise. That's something you got to get better at. Yeah. We have years of keeping our brain full. Mm-hmm. Go get a deer stand and be quiet. Amen. Amen. Go get a deer stand during deer season. Unless you're hunting with binoculars.
Or a camera.
Yeah, I mean, I think, but what a fun pursuit. What a fun pursuit to feel like I'm going to learn how to turn my mind off. I wonder how I'm going to do it. I wonder how I'm going to, everybody likes challenges. Everybody wants to be challenged. Right. Go challenge yourself with turning your leg, turning your leg off. You better keep your legs on. Turning your mind off. Right. That's how Jay leg it. But I think it's an exercise. I think that's something that is not naturally occurring. I think you got to work at learning what that's like.
Yeah. No, I mean, I know, meditation. I was watching a podcast about this guy who wrote the book Breathe.
Yes.
And it's basically about like the power that we have and can control with just breathing. And he talks about these guys that can meditate and they can control because of, practice for years. I don't know, I can't even understand how long, but they can control what side of their hand is hot and cold. and things like they're put into a freezer truck,
right?
I mean, the doors
right
can open. They're not like locked in there, but they're put in there with no shirt on. Well, they dip a shirt in water,
oh gosh,
and then put the shirt on the guy, and he's meditating, and they come back like hours later, and the shirt is dry, and all around him the ice is melted. So, basically, like, yeah, it takes practice, but there's some things to be learned with practicing breathing,
so
and
physically,
just being quiet.
Physically, if you go to the gym, what you're going to find out is just how weak and soft you are.
Yeah, that's the worst.
And that's the reason for going.
Yeah,
that's why you go, is because you got to discover where you are before you can get to where you're going, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe mentally it's the same. Maybe mentally it's like you see somebody accomplishing something and you're like, what?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so weak.
Yeah.
I'm so terrible.
It's very true.
I'm a lover of sunrises and sunsets, or just listen to the wind, catch a quiet moment during coffee. Mine is at night on my front porch in Oregon, on my back porch in Arizona. sitting on the porch watching the sun go down. It's like that's the space. For some reason, I'm able to turn it off. My day's over. I'm not going to accomplish anything else the rest of that day. And there will be times where Lacey will come out and she'll sit with me for like a little while and talk, but I got to get back inside. Like I could sit there on the back porch in the summers when it's warm outside. I could sit there for hours.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's kind of like my spot that I look forward to. And what's funny is when I'm home in the winter, that same porch is like, ugh, I wouldn't sit on that. Really? It's freezing cold and snow on it. So warm, I think is it's a big determining factor for me. If it's freezing cold and windy, I don't meditate very well.
Yeah.
Oh, what about staying busy? What about this? Staying busy doing something like a craft, some sort of craft that you can keep your mind sort of like engaged in what you're doing. And I know it sounds kind of
productive.
Yeah, kind of productive. But like I've oiled saddles before, and you set it on the stand, you're kind of getting it all set up, and you've got time to really spend time thinking, even though your body's busy. You got something to keep your mind somewhat engaged in. And
that's so great because full circle, we spent 6 hours cleaning my car.
Yeah.
For that purpose.
Yeah.
Because it was just, when you just start and then, 4 hours later, there's still dirt somewhere.
Yeah.
And, and then by the end of it, first of all, you got a clean car, and then you spent 6 hours just kind of chilling.
Yeah. I struggle with keeping my thoughts in order if I'm just sitting still. If I'm just sitting looking at a wall, 45 minutes seems to go by, and I'm like, why have I been thinking about fishing this whole time? Like I can't focus. But for some reason, if I'm busy, if I'm moving, but again, these are the sync moments. These are the sync moments of like, God, where am I? Because for me, what God was showing me in that moment with the fish and the tadpoles, that was hugely meaningful in my life, because God was like, hey, if you don't slow down and just sort of take it in, you're going to miss what life is like. You're going to die thinking life is like this, and it's not. Mm-hmm. It's only that way when you're around. It's that way in your marriage. It's that way in your family. It's that way in your job. It's just a go, 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 go energy. Like I'm a spark plug for a lot of things in life, but the bad side of that is you don't get to experience the peacefulness that's supposed to be a part of that. Yeah. And so my death that I was washing off my hands is quit being in such a hurry, because the hurry that you're in as a spark plug is bleeding over into things that need to stay alive, and you're killing them. Yeah. And so for me, that was that sync moment. When I lost my mom, the moon, sunrises, and sunsets bring a whole new meaning. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So yeah, I think those are the moments of like, God, show me how I'm supposed to think. Show me what to think. Yeah.
Well, people, get your last minute questions in.
I have one more thing as we're waiting on questions.
Yeah.
They've discovered a lot of alligators in Fort Worth.
Really?
Yeah. I just read about it. My wife, I cannot wait to tell my wife. I haven't told her yet. If she's watching, she can jump on and comment. But
where?
Lake Worth and Eagle Mountain Lake. I'm pretty sure Kenneth Copeland put them there. I'm almost positive. I have to believe he's responsible for this because that's right by his little compound. But there was a picture on Facebook today, and there's like 9 of them lined up.
Like they're getting
and
rid
they're
of them?
Confirming. No, in the water. They're confirming. Anybody from Fort Worth, Lacey said, I told you. See? Yep. There you go. She's watching. Wow. Fort Worth, as far as Fort Worth, they said there are a lot. Like the fishing game, they were giving the fishing report of what's been biting, what's been doing this, and they said, yeah, we are confirming.
Alligators.
There are. Yeah.
There are in the Prineville Reservoir.
Jay Leggett says he can help out with this. Hey, Jay, would you mind tagging me in the picture of your 20 billion foot? I'm kidding. Kenneth Copeland didn't really put him in there, but maybe he did. I don't know. He didn't. He hasn't denied it. Hey, if you want to make a statement, Kenneth Copeland, if you want to comment on this, here's your chance. I say you did it. Jay, can you tag me in the picture? He killed like a 13 or 14 foot out. He had like the state record for the law. Jay
where?
Where did he get it? I think he had the state record in Mississippi. Jay, help me on this.
Dude, I want to go alligator.
Maybe I'm making this story better than it was, but it was big. Whatever it was huge. Can food banks use alligator? I've eaten a lot of alligator, and it's amazing.
No.
It's like chicken. I mean, it's like the batter really determines the taste. But
back to what I was saying. There probably still are snapping turtles in the Prineville Reservoir.
Big ones.
That's crazy. Where did those come from, you think? Because just somebody must have got it as a pet and just released it, because those aren't native.
My wife was being so sweet the other day. She was trying to be so sweet. We had this conversation. Have you seen the video of the girl who's like, I'm saving the turtle? And she takes it and she throws it into the river.
Oh, it's a tortoise.
And the comments like, that's a tortoise that can't swim. Shoot. She killed it. Are you kidding? Wait, which part? Are you kidding? About eating alligators. We've said a lot of ridiculous things, I feel like, in the last 30 seconds. We got to clarify. But yeah, I told Lacey, I'm like, hey, I appreciate you being so sweet to me. Sometimes I'm okay. I'm just all right. Like, I'm all right. And I feel like I'm getting thrown into the river as a tortoise. Right. And it was, Valerie, tell me what you're saying. Oh my gosh, about
Hold
Lake
on.
Shasta has lots of turtles. Are we froze? No. Are we froze up?
I think my computer just died.
Oh, the video has ended.
Give me a second.
My
That's embarrassing.
Well, the computer died, so
My computer is definitely on the fritz, and it will say has lots of power and then just die.
yeah. It's probably a good spot. I mean, at this point, it's just going to turn into rambling. I feel like
we talked about
some good
turtles
stuff.
and alligators. So
I expected that.
so you're continuing the series.
Back on the series again Sunday about the thinking, and if you think about how much of your life is determined by choices. Oh, dang it. Homeless person on the side of the street. You're only about 3 choices away from that. Like your life is probably only 3 choices away from where it is and where they are.
Okay.
About 3 choices. And all the choices are made in your mind, in your thoughts, the things you determine to think. Choices are so important, but choices don't just happen. That's the effect. The cause is, what you've allowed yourself to think on. And so that's kind of where we're at. Yep. Sorry, everybody got cut off. That's kind of funny that it ended the way that it did. I mean, it feels like
because we were wrapping up anyway, so it ended. And I was like, dude, the computer died. And we had this moment of like, do we go back on or?
Maybe we'll just start ending it that way. Like you don't know when it's coming and then just bam, off.
Yeah.
It'd be a good way to end it.
Oh, okay. This has, no.
Just do it. Just do it.
No,
no one's going to watch this one anyway. Come on.
So the comedian Bo Burnham?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's why I paused.
Pandering.
Yes. So he released a special and he's like that he made completely himself like in his room.
He produced it.
He learned how to video and edit and all this different stuff. So he was like, so basically one of them was, I'm doing this. So don't expect all the move like he was going to say transitions, but it ended immediately right there. So don't expect smooth
I like it. So, Jay, I helped catch a state record, but that wasn't my tag. The one you were talking about was 13.2 and 756 pounds.
Oh, my gosh.
13
They're
foot,
dinosaurs.
2 inches. They are dinosaurs.
I feel like they are.
Just rip each other's legs off. You've seen that video.
Oh, yeah.
Just ripping legs off.
You know what's weird is I'm just now kind of going through my brain, like thinking about all the animals. And then, which are like, okay, those are definitely ancestors of, dinosaurs or whatever, but quite a few steps removed. And then there's alligators that are just like very close to dinosaurs.
Yeah. You just get that sense. I would say you get that sense maybe like with bears, like 9 foot tall bears, polar bears, things like that. You just get the sense that they probably were competitive with whatever.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be funny if we get to heaven and we find out the guy was like, there were never dinosaurs.
I just
put those bones there.
Confuse you guys.
Ooh, boy, they've never found a completed T-Rex skeleton ever. Let me finish that statement. They have never found a complete T-Rex. They don't know what they were actually built like. It's all guessing. And all the pre-man never found a full skeleton. All the caveman theories, they've never found a full skeleton. We don't know what a T-Rex actually looked like because they've never fully found a skeleton of a T-Rex ever. Never, not one. Bits and pieces.
Now,
and
does that
guesses.
mean their bones just...
Bits, pieces, guesses, that's a T-Rex.
I could be a T-Rex.
Science.
I identify as a T-Rex.
Well, what if an alligator is just like a real big T-Rex? Look at the arms. Look at the front arm.
Yeah, you just kind of bend them weird, bend
the
tail up.
What if all the alligators are from here
you
up?
bend alligators weird and you make them and give them bigger legs?
I'm saying, now think about this. Have you ever seen an alligator take down a zebra? Of course you have. So what if an alligator...
Okay, yeah. For a second I was like, it ran down a zebra, but no, water. Okay, I'm tracking.
If you found a zebra skeleton mixed in with an alligator skeleton and you gave the alligator a zebra's back quarters, what do you have?
A zebragator. Zebrator.
T-Rex. You have a
T-Rex.
Big back legs, long tail, big head. I mean,
speaking of things that,
Think sync.
well, I'm starving.
Yeah. Hey, so we are doing more of these this week.
Yes.
Monday nights are the only ones we're doing live. That's the
Right.
only one
And
that
we'll start-
we're
yeah.
having participation. So thank you guys for jumping in on
thank
it.
you. Seriously.
Hey,
Thanks for getting back on.
when you're sorry we kicked you off. We just were having a moment. But taking notes on Sunday, like no matter where you're watching from, it doesn't matter where you're watching from or what time of the week you're watching from, does not matter. If you want to jump in and ask questions about a sermon, here's your chance. This is the Monday nights.
Like you write them down and then just bring
Absolutely.
that. Just shoot.
Yeah. And I think if you wanted to message them too, it's also like if you're not going to be able to watch live, but you want to be able to come back and watch later.
Yeah.
We could bring those up. I'm loving the questions. What do I do when I feel like I'm so lost I can't talk to God? Please, can we have more of those? Can we please do
Maybe
more of that?
too, I'm thinking we could like save them if people commented them on Sunday on the live stream.
Yeah, have somebody start writing those down.
We could save them there, so you could just write them down. Wesley raised his hand.
What?
Yeah, there he is. Other hand.
I'm excited. I'm probably, like I said, I feel like God just sort of let me have a few months of just silence, which is good. I needed it. I mean, March, April, and a lot of May, I felt like were just kind of quiet months for me.
Right.
And so to be able to come back and do this right here, like everybody's saying thank you, and I'm like, no, thank you that I get to sort of walk this out. Thank you for having it set up. Yeah. The work that's gone into this has been just
I do
amazing.
a lot of research because I love it. So, okay. Well, thank you everybody for joining. Tell your friends to get on here next Monday and ask more questions and write down your questions because that's the whole point.
Even if it's about zebra gators.
It can be about zebra gators. All right. Talk to you guys later. And
we're actually going to turn it off on purpose.
Yeah, seriously. All right. See you guys.